I'm Tom Moorhous, and I'm from Oakley, Kansas, in western Kansas. I graduated from Fort Hays State University with my bachelor's in May of 1978, and I have 2 master's degrees from Fort Hays State. The first one I graduated with in May of 1981, and then came back many years later to finish my second master's in May of 1998. I transferred to Fort Hays State College, and the Kansas State Legislature changed it to Fort Hays State University that year in the fall of 1976. My earliest memory was how big it seemed. Looking around, I thought to myself, my gosh, I'll get lost on this huge campus. And in reality, it was quite small. Today, Fort Hays State University is twice as big, maybe 3 times as large concerning total acreage than what I first encountered back in the summer of 1976. There was just a madness about living in old Wiest Hall, which was for guys only. The boys would leave Wiest Hall and hang around McMidas Hall, where the girls were, trying not to get into trouble. Now, of course, today, both these buildings are co-ed. In the fall of 1976, in Wiest Hall, the building was only 12 to 14 years old, but it looked like it was 100 years old, because you would have over 400 young men, some of them undisciplined, always tearing up the place and never showing much respect for the building. The building still had its original paint coat. It was a cold and dreary, not very friendly atmosphere. So a number of us got together. I had a degree in art. I was bored. I asked permission from then Director of Student Housing, people would say Residence Life today, James Nugent, if I could begin painting, being an art major, on the walls outside my bedroom. For some strange reason, he said yes, and I began to, because I was interested in political science as well as art, began painting American presidents. The first one was Jimmy Carter, and over the next 25 years, 30 years, there would be everybody up to President Obama in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And people would come to see them. Young people that I knew, and even young people after us who would graduate, leave Fort Hays State University, would come back, a decade later, just simply wondering if the paintings were still there. So it was never intended to be that way. That's how it turned out. The difference between President Tomanek and the President Hammond I met. Jerry Tomanek was a good old boy. He was a good human being, and he was good with small groups of people. We dormitory rats would be hired to work, the cash bars at the president's home, the president's residence on campus, when President Tomanek would invite donors in. And yes, believe it or not, we weren't paid much, but we would run the cash bars. And I watched the man, and he was a good human being, and he was good for Fort Hays State in the 1960s, 1970s. But by the 1980s, Fort Hays State needed something else. And here comes this guy named Ed Hammond. And when I first met him in the 1986, 1987, he was living for that summer in Wiest Hall. I kept coming back to see old friends, and I looked at him and I thought, boy, he looks older than what he is, I guess. And I thought, there's no hope. The guy can't turn this place around. And I was wrong. And 10, 12 years later, when I'd come back, I would think, my gosh, he did it. He raised the money. He raised the enrollment through the virtual college, and he was magic. And that's what the university needed. President Tomanek was a good human being, and he was right for his time. President Hammond came in, and he already had the 21st century right up here, and he made it happen, along with his new virtual college. The enrollment increased. Fort Hays State University began to shore up and update their academic buildings, build some new buildings. Everything's updated, upgraded. So that's what's changed. To the young people, I would say, you're so lucky to have what you have right now. And it's so easy to take for granted a university atmosphere that Fort Hays State has, with its new academic buildings, with the new dormitory buildings. Everything is new, everything is upbeat, and everything's so real. The enrollment, third in the state now, even at times ahead of the Wichita State University. I just wish young people could realize how lucky they are to have what they do here, because 42 years ago, it was a different story.